What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to your channel. For today's video, we're getting a little controversial, so please, CDL, don't find me. We're talking about, number one, I'm going to go over my match just a little bit, and we're going to talk about the Minnesota Rocker and OpTic gaming situation. I know that pretty much everyone in the community has given their 2 cents, but I wanted to sit down and articulate my thoughts a little bit because I have been in a position like this before as a professional player, and I understand both sides, and I've seen a lot of not witch hunting, but people are pretty mad. So I'm going to try to lay out both sides as well as I can, and hopefully give you guys a new perspective on the situation. Now, first and foremost, if you guys are unaware of the situation, yesterday during a LSCO control, it was 2-2. OpTic was about to win the game, and Cammy called in was attempting to call in a precision airstrike, but on accident, he pulled out his SAE, which is another kill streak, but you cannot take the kill streak off. Keep that in mind. He accidentally opened the SAE and his game bugged, and he could not exit the SAE, and he could not call it in. So obviously if you call it in, it's G8 and he can't exit it. So it was a game breaking bug, and his teammates either have to kill him or the enemy team has to kill him. Now, the thing that Minnesota was arguing is that Cammy would have been able to get his precision airstrike off in order to keep OpTic off of the point. Therefore, OpTic would not have won the situation if Cammy didn't get the bug. So the game ended. Minnesota went to the league, was like, look, we believe that OpTic did not win this game because Cammy was in a position to make sure that they didn't, and it was just a whole thing. And OpTic obviously ended up getting the map win because Cammy had his bug, and pretty much chaos ensued. If you guys were around yesterday, then you all know, but it was an absolute shit show on the timeline, in the Twitch chat. Shout out to Twitch, and everyone was mad. So let's talk about it a little bit. Now, first and foremost, if you guys want to do your own research and you guys want to go see for yourselves, I believe Minnesota uploaded about a 5-minute video with Cammy outlining the situation. So if you guys want to go see a first-hand account, make sure you check that out. I'm sure Rev will put some clips here and there in the video. But essentially what Cam was arguing is that he wanted the win or loss to be attributed to player skill, not necessarily the game doing it for him.
To switch your streaks, you have to hold down your button key to change your streak to your precision. I'm holding it down, nothing's happening, I press it again, and then it pulls out the SAE. I simply just, obviously then I'm officially stuck. I can't get out of it. I can't throw a stun, I can't use my gun, I can't move down to the point to even possibly make a play. I just think it's like a pretty shit situation. Like, I feel like for people to say it's 100% a guarantee win is quite annoying.
And what he means by that is the game basically ended for him because he got a bug. The result of the game was not up to the player, which I understand. As a player, you don't want the game to end whether you played well or if you didn't play well. The result should be on the player. And his argument was that it wasn't in this specific situation. He also mentioned again that the SAE was a bugged kill streak in the game that you can't take off. So it is player error on his part because he did accidentally select the SAE when he was trying to streak, which in his defense, I also do a shit ton. I do it in scrims all the time, and it's like a 50-50 chance of the bug actually happening when you open the SAE kill streak, because what you have to do is just hit it on the D-pad right away and it'll pull it out. But to actually use your precision or your cruise missile, you have to hold down the D-pad and then select it. So that was just a minor, well, I guess not minor, major oversight by Cam there. And to OpTic's defense as well, when you get a result of a map win like that and you believe that you would have won the map regardless and you did get the map win, have been, I mean, I can't even recall a time that a map got replayed like that after a result was already cemented before, to be honest with you guys. The precedent, I can't even think one. So I know OpTic is obviously pissed. They forfeited their match. And I understand the frustrations, like I said, on both sides. OpTic believes that the streak would not have made a difference in this situation.
I'm sad. I'm honestly just sad. I mean, everyone's pissed off right now. It's the most weirdest thing I've ever been a part of. I'm not gonna lie, we literally just forfeited a match. Yeah, I mean, it literally just sucks.
I think obviously we were the match after this, so I think this discussion carried on for like 2 hours or so. And we'll get to my opinion on how things could have been handled a little bit later down the video, but both sides were pretty much going back and forth for about 2 hours about OpTic's like, look, we had the timing, we were stacking the point. I think they only needed one tick at this point, so they're arguing that the streak wouldn't have made a difference because they're about to stack and win the game, regardless of if Cam called in his kill streak. And then Minnesota was saying, like, look, he was frozen for X amount of seconds, the streak would have stopped. It's a huge gray area in Respawn. That's why, like, Respawn replays are pretty much black and white for the most part. Like, look, you get a bug, the game gets replayed, because there's no way to recreate the situation. And then if you leave it up to the players, what happened yesterday can happen, where you just talk for 2 hours because, look, I had a streak, but there were 7 seconds, we had 2 people on the cap and we would have won, but Cam's streak takes 4 seconds to come down. And it's like, it goes back and forth forever. I've been in the arguments and it's never productive. Now, there are a couple of analogies that I would like to draw to 2 specific situations that have happened to me personally, just because I have the experience. So the first one was a hardpoint London Docs against Splice in Infinite Warfare. We were playing them, and I think Ben's controller broke, or Mad Cat, I don't remember who. But one of their players' controller broke. We were up at the time. My team was up 100 points. We had 2 sets of full streaks, and we were rotated to a money hill on that map. So we would have been up of like a minimum of 160. But one of their controllers broke, and it was a blanket replay because there's no way to replicate the situation. And if you start arguing, it's like, look, like, there's no way to quantify that, like, in a result, if that makes sense. Like, you can't start a game and then go to like 90 points, you know what I mean? So that's why there's such a blanket black and white rule when it comes to bugs and replays. And in this specific situation, the fact that Minnesota was granted a replay is something that has either never happened or has happened a handful of times at best, because the result of the game was already OpTic winning. It wasn't a cut-off mid-map kind of thing. Like, if Cammy's controller broke and they couldn't play, then the situation would be different, but OpTic had won the game at this point. Then the other one that a lot of people were talking about was a Bokage S&D against New York last year, if you guys recall, when Envoy tried to go up a ladder and he got the pistol bug, so he couldn't pull out his weapon and kill Paul, and everyone was just complaining about the bugs and trying to draw comparisons between the 2 situations. And when things like this happen, probably just to talk about like how I think it should have been handled for a second. When things like this happen, as a player, especially a player playing after this, there needed to be a final say much faster. Granted, I'm not in the discussion. I don't know whether 2 sides were just going back and forth for 2 hours, whether the league was trying to figure out what to do for this amount of time. I am unaware, obviously. But to maintain some level of competitive integrity for the rest of the teams, even for those teams, there needed to be a final voice saying, look, after, like, let's call it 30 minutes, look, if this is happening, period, OpTic, are you going to forfeit or are you going to replay? Or Minnesota, we're granting the replay. It's up to OpTic at this point. Like, we need an answer. But like I said, 30 minutes is a reasonable amount of time in my opinion, but the discussion went on for way too long. That's the only thing that I really want to harp on, in my opinion. The fact that I, as a player, had to wait 2 hours for this entire thing to unravel. I was just sitting in my chair, like, feet up, dogs out, trying to farm Twitter impressions because there's just nothing. I was just sitting there waiting to play. And I think that, like I said, I'm not sure on the situation, so I could be ignorant here, but I think that, again, there just needed to be one person from the league just be like, look, this is happening, whether that's a replay, whether that's not a replay. So there would need to be a final voice in the situation to make sure that, like, competitive integrity was upheld in some way. Granted, the situation was pretty wild. I think both sides got very heated. If you saw Dashy's tweets, that kind of sums up the emotion on the OpTic side for the most part, I'm sure. And I know the guys on Minnesota, they're not assholes. I know that everyone's going to paint them as such, but I'm good friends with a couple of people on their team, and I think that, like, this is just a shitty situation. Again, to bring up Cam's point, you never want to lose to something other than your own skill. You never want the game to be out of your hands. So I understand OpTic's side. They won the game. They believe that the results of the streak would not have changed the outcome of the game, and Minnesota is obviously arguing what I've already mentioned in the video. So it's just a shit situation all around, but I think it needed to be handled better in terms of just a final ruling, because the fact that it went on for that long is pretty rough in my opinion. All right, now that that's small things out of the way, just to talk about my match a little bit. We played the Vegas Legion, and going into our first match, they were a team that everyone was holding in pretty high regard. I think that a lot of people think that Vegas had, or I guess Vegas had turned a new leaf in terms of the stigma behind their team, and they had a lot of really good preseason results and scrims and things like that when people were streaming them, and a lot of people, like I said, held them in high regard. So we were going in, didn't take them lightly. We knew that we just had to play our game and maintain the level of teamwork and communication that we had kind of become accustomed to towards the end of Vanguard when we went back to back. So that was really what we were harping on in practice going into our first week. Obviously, we still have one more match tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know who it's against. It's either OpTic, FaZe, or Florida, one of those guys. But we're just making sure that we were on top of our game. Granted, we dropped an S&D. I'm kind of pissed about the S&D because they beat us without really doing much. They kind of were just playing back every round, and we were giving him freebies. So that was definitely a blunder on our behalf. But the respawns went super well. Our control was relatively dominant. The hard points we played, we were a few hiccups here and there, but I think that we played pretty fundamentally well. Communication was on point. Zach and Ken were absolutely piecing. They played phenomenal Call of Duty. Dylan was doing his thing. You know, I got 4 minutes of hill time, so shout out to me. But yeah, it was a good team win. I think that everyone did their part, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Let me know your thoughts on the Minnesota and OpTic situation down below. Hopefully I could at least throw a different opinion out there. I think that the situation was just it was bad in general. I think social media, Call of Duty social media tends to run away with itself a little bit sometimes. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.